Hello, adventurers. You know, the cool thing about the internet is that there's just so darn many people on it, and they all can't wait to tell you their opinions on things. Most of the time, it's horrible things on Facebook, but every now and again, you find a great group sharing advice for something you love. Today, we found a post on Reddit titled Top 50 D&D Tips for Dungeon Masters. Our first thought was, you don't need 50. But as we started reading, we realized this list is actually pretty good. What started as a let's just read this on air turned into an actual great discussion about each point. So today we'll read the first 10 tips and we'll continue a series of these episodes over the next few months. While I have retention, I'd like to thank Eric for the 5-star rating. He says, best D&D podcast I've found. Glad I stumbled on this one. Solidly good time. So thank you so much, Eric. We sent you a pin and a sticker to say thanks. And if you want some free swag, just leave us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple, Spotify, or on our website at curmudgeonsanddragons.com/reviews and send us the screenshot to curmudgeonsanddragonspod@gmail.com. We'll get your information and send you some stuff. I know we have friends in the UK, but as of right now, I can only afford postage within the States. That's just how it is right now. We'll see when things calm down a little bit. So let's find out which of these tips we found the most useful. Everybody roll initiative.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Take two.
No, we're
Nope,
keeping this. No, we only get one take. No, we're just talking about how I make my own life as difficult as possible. I might as well keep that going now. Hello, adventurers. Welcome to another episode of Curmudgeons and Dragons. Today at the table, I'm Jason Portizo. I've got Ms. Josey Diaz.
Just here to make your life hell.
Yep. You and me both. Jim Crocker.
Hey.
And Greg Genovas.
I'm here to help Josey.
Yes. Which no one has ever said before. So,
and
today,
Jim just puts up with the rest of us.
Jim's just doing fine along for the ride.
I'm just happy to be able to talk to other humans, given the the shut-in life that I've had for the last several months.
And you landed on these assholes.
You know what?
I'm a delight.
Like I say, that's my range of experience is so limited right now that this I don't have a lot of to compare you guys to. So
I'll take
Jason. People ask to hang out with me.
Yeah,
you ask to hang out with me.
I do because I make my own life as difficult as possible. We've established this, Josey.
It's not just you. Other people enjoy my company as well.
On today's episode, I had planned for us. So I found this Reddit post from a few months ago. This is from Reddit user. It's up at the top of the page here. Reddit user creative2567. And I'll link to the post in the
uncreative username.
It's literally a creative username. It's just the 2567th one. We're going to link to this post as well. And there's a link to his blog. Maybe we'll link to the blog instead. So this post is the top 50 D&D tips for dungeon masters and kind of geared towards new DMs and teaching them what to do and what not to do. So full disclosure, I have not read this yet.
Neither have I.
Yeah, we're going in blind here.
Yep.
So
if you think I do any,
which is good because I want to be as blind as you guys are in here.
Cold reading.
Figure out we just kind of read down the list and give like our surface thoughts on it. I would like if we did. Would you guys rather do like a 1 to 10 system, a agree disagree system? What are you guys feeling for rating these?
I'm gonna go with whatever my heart desires in that moment, if that's cool.
So I think in advance we can all agree that 50 is like way too many things to have to know to keep in your head for especially for a new dungeon master. And maybe we can kind of start with do you really need this, or is this something you're just going to learn? Like, so is this advice you need?
Maybe we'll condense this list as we go.
Yeah.
And get it down to like the 6 things you should probably think about. All right. So I sent you guys a list. Let's just get started because there's a lot of shit here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Number 1, engage passive players by giving them a special relationship with an important NPC.
I mean, engage all players by doing that, not just the passive ones.
Yeah, I think this is especially if like it's a new group where it's like maybe they didn't think of like a hook in their backstory. You can kind of have them have a relationship to an established character pretty easily.
Yeah, and I think that the wording there is not so much like only engage the passive players, but a reminder to go out of your way to engage the passive players, because the active players are going to interact no matter what.
I think 1B there is kind of the corollary of that, or the expansion to engage those players with important NPCs is, and don't then kill those important NPCs, because
especially
you
off screen.
undo all of that work. Well, especially off screen, but just if you've done the work to engage, especially a passive player with an NPC, don't then turn around and blow that up.
Not immediately anyway. Yeah. Like as like a massive story point later, if you want to like really motivate that character by devastating them, that's a little different.
So I don't think that. See, like that's a one-trick pony, and then you've eliminated all possibility of then doing anything else with that relationship. So
that is the feigned death.
Yeah, but that's I feel like that's something that's more late game.
Very careful about that.
The stakes are getting a lot higher.
Yeah.
But that's going off track.
It's the same thing. I feel like it's the same thing in like creative writing as it is in plotting a D&D something, is that if it helps further the plot to get rid of a character, then that's when you should do it, not just because you feel like killing off a character.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't say just for fun. Okay, as a massive plot point. Like that's got to be a plot bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll do an episode sometime in the future of when to kill NPCs, or even when to kill PCs.
Interesting. I like it.
Answer: when they deserve it. Number 2, have intelligent monsters use tactics such as feigned retreats, encirclement, and multi-pronged attacks.
This actually transitions to a possible future episode of third-party books.
Yeah, everybody is big fans of the monsters know what they're doing.
Oh yes,
and all excellent the book. Forums that I'm on. I do. So the one thing about feigned retreats is that I think that
they're a violation of the Geneva Convention, and you're a war criminal if you do it.
Exactly.
It's not that you're a war criminal. It's that the players should know when the characters have won, right? When the encounter is over. So
I feel like with some clever Fey-like wording, though, you could sort of,
if as kind of at the table level, you're making it clear it's not over yet, but not like not kind of feigned retreat where like they run away and then you play for 10 minutes and then suddenly they ambush you, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
if it's something where you turn the fight. Like it's fight's not over yet because they're here's one of them circled back around to shoot you with their bow. Stay in initiative. That's okay because that's the combat still going on.
You shouldn't come out of initiative anyway until the enemy is either totally run away or totally dead. So if they're still running and you're going to like have that be a fake retreat, you're still in initiative at that point.
You're still in initiative.
Exactly.
You can still chase them.
That's the only thing that I would seek clarification on that particular one. But yeah.
And then to your point before, if you leave 6 of them alive and in 10 minutes down the road, 6 of them still ambush you, you're glad you didn't leave 10 alive.
Yeah. If it's, depending on the kind of ground rules and the sort of the table rules that you've established for your campaign. But yeah, no, smart monsters. That's pretty.
Smart monsters is massive.
Good advice.
Yeah, because like they should be smarter than you as the DM. So that book was called "The Monsters Know What They're Doing," right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. One of very few like very well known third party books that I don't have. I have to go get that one. All right, number 3. Create different encounter goals rather than just kill everything. Have the PC save a hostage, seal off a magic portal, retrieve an important item, etc.
Yeah, that's great rookie DM advice.
Definitely.
I really like this one, actually.
Yeah.
Because as somebody that's never been a DM, this is like, I don't just want to go be a murder hobo all the time. I want to actually have... I'm going to reference Skyrim again, but I like having missions and stuff where it's not just kill the thing. You can kill the thing, but that's not your goal.
The campaign I'm playing right now, our... session 1, first 5 minutes, the way that our characters met, we were coming down, 3 different roads that all met together and we all got ambushed by the same bandits together. I was the only one they attacked.
Cute. That's like a nice little meet cute.
Kind of. Like we were like, we didn't know if we were supposed to save each other.
That's
or
something that once you guys are all like level 15 or 16 and somebody's like, so like, how'd you guys get together? Be like, well, it's kind of a funny story, but the same schmuck ambushed all of us at the same time.
Right. We're holding hands. Like we got held up together. And one, as characters, we didn't know who was with the bandits and who wasn't. So that was one thing. And 2, I was the only one that actually got attacked. I had a crossbow shot at my head that missed, and I had a sword that like I'm a turtle, so I had a sword that bounced off my shell. And the other guys didn't have anything come their way. So when I took my great axe and dug it into the guy's chest, they thought I super overreacted. So, and the cleric player was even like in character yelling at me for killing a guy that didn't attack him. I'm like, you just saw the crossbow bolt go right past my head. Mm-hmm. So having a character tell another character, why did you kill that guy, is a question that should be coming up at every level. If you're going by things like this, if you're trying to have a good campaign where characters are aligned good, killing everything shouldn't be your go-to action.
Sure.
Which is something I, as a player, am working on, because one way to solve a puzzle is to eliminate the puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. I actually, in the campaign I'm running now, they encountered a sleuth of bears who were fighting a band of Ankegs, and they had to decide who to help, essentially.
If anyone.
Yeah, if anyone.
Just stand back and take bets. Yeah. That's another thing you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Cook up some popcorn and be like, no. This is the entertainment portion of dinner.
Yeah, and it was a good time.
So we don't forget anything. Of the 3 tips we've done so far, do any of these have to come off the list?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think we're good so far.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think these are good ones.
Cool. So we have 3 that we agree with, and nothing's coming off. Great. Number 4, use your NPCs to make the PCs look good. Have them praise and celebrate the PCs. Create situations where the PCs can heroically save the NPCs.
Oh, yeah. That's spot on.
I'm going to disagree a little bit with this, because
I don't know. I kind of like it when the NPCs are a little bit of a. I like it when they're a little bit of a dick. They're like, oh, you
not so much that
option,
point, but much like in like a good sandbox video game, you want kind of the world to be able to survive and go on without your PCs. Obviously, maybe not with the big bad's plan, but like you don't want is like, oh, good job killing the goblins that anyone in the village could have taken care of. I think it has to be earned for sure.
I read this though as more as don't make everybody antagonistic.
Everyone's
not the enemy. Don't forget that they should have fans.
Okay. If that's your interpretation of it,
yeah,
I
read that as like, because
I was thinking of the NPCs as like an entourage. It's just like, oh my god, the party's so great! Like, look at how good they did slaying that Sphinx, and it's like,
no,
they need a fan club or something.
I'm not
like
against
that,
those NPCs.
Yeah,
right. That's what I was picturing, though.
My interpretation of this was to have the NPCs support the PCs, not the other way around. We had a horror story, and I think this was the one that Josey was just you and me on the episode. This was in like December, where we had that character that changed names. It was Resnir and Resmir. And like the whole thing was just like this NPC it was a DMPC that was like very clearly a self-insert, and he was the big hero of the story.
Right?
This is the one who was a hologram. Yeah. It was one of the biggest bullshit stories.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite stories because it was so bad.
It was just bullshit.
But this is like, that whole campaign was based around this NPC, and all the player characters were there to just kind of like ooh and ah how good Resnir/Resmir was.
Yeah.
So I'm taking this as like, make the NPCs there to support the PCs. In the early levels, you may need a scout or a veteran, even if just for action economy, just help out in
a Gandalf type character.
Right.
Yeah. I just think the part that I don't agree with in this is to use them to make the PCs look good.
I don't think that means morally good.
I don't know. There are some player characters that just no matter what light you put them in, they're going to be a dick.
I'm seeing that as skilled good, not morally good.
I mean, yeah, it's like you got to remember that like the PCs are heroes, and everyone like NPCs should be normal guys 90% of the time.
What I would do is replace that word good with appreciated. That there are people in your life who are happy that you are like happy that you're there, happy that you can protect them, happy that you're spending money in at their blacksmith, whatever,
yes,
like, you can be the favorite customer of the guy that makes armor or something like that. And so he's always happy to see you coming, How'd that last one go? Oh, broke all the straps on your plate mail.
I just think there are a lot of implications to the like making them look good.
Yeah, I think this is more of like make sure the PCs are the star of the story.
Sure.
Yeah.
And not a Resnir situation. Number 5, buff up common monsters with a special ability, extra limbs, regeneration, the ability to fly, etc.
I think this can be executed fairly well. I don't know if I would have that be advice for beginner dungeon masters.
Sure. I don't even know if I would make this as early as number 5.
Yeah.
This is like number 45 to me.
Yeah. This is something that would come up later in a campaign where it's like you don't want to have to just keep throwing in more ridiculous monsters. It'll get a little bit too much like later season Supernatural. You want some of the old favorites, just maybe with like a little bit of pizzazz.
And that's one thing I was thinking too, where it's like monsters that you saw at levels 1 through 5. Let's say you're going back to that area. Let's say you're revisiting that town for some reason, and the same monsters are there, but they've leveled up a little bit too along with you. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of dire wolves. We've seen these before, but now they regenerate. Jim, I know you're not a huge fan of homebrew stuff. How does this fall for you?
So I'm not necessarily a fan of like stuff that is homebrewed from scratch.
Okay.
But if you take a monster that you understand how it works and you use an ability that you understand how it works and you lay them over each other, there's a long tradition in D&D of having like templates. Like you take something and then you put in, like you take a kobold and you put an undead template over it or something like that, right? That's totally fine. That's a very reasonable thing to do. DMs have been doing that since time immemorial. I do it myself all the time. I mean, and the other thing you do is sometimes you don't even need to do this, because if you need like the biggest, baddest motherfucking orc you've ever seen, you just take an ogre stat block and like cross out the word ogre and write the word chief orc across it. And you just make him, 7'2" instead of 10 feet tall, but keep all his stats the same. And boom, you've got a super badass orc, that you didn't need to do a whole lot of extra work for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm always pro reskinning.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start like adding things and coming up with things from scratch, that's when we start getting a little dicey. I think this is fine, especially as a callback.
Yeah, and the other thing about like homebrewing monsters is not nearly as big a deal as homebrewing like a character class or something like that. Because for the most part, that's like one encounter,
or worse,
right?
magic weapons.
Yeah. Like something that's gonna like be a problem for multiple levels or for the God forbid the whole campaign.
Yeah,
a monster, if you fuck it up, like that's one fight that you fucked it up for.
Right.
And then you learn something, you don't do it again, or you do it again because it worked, but you tweak it more. And so there's a lot more leeway with the critters than there is with the characters.
Number 6, don't over describe a location. Give the players a good overview and let them ask for details.
Yeah, you got to roll to see what kind of trees those are.
The thing that I would add to this is that you can also ask them questions. Anytime you don't know something about an area, you can say, you walk into the temple and you turn to the cleric and say, what do you see that tells you this temple has been neglected by the worshipers? Or what does it need to bring it up to spec so that your deity will be happy with it or something like that?
That's kind of cool because you're giving them what they should be extrapolating from what they see. And so I tell them what they see and they extrapolate from that. You're telling them what they extrapolate. They tell you what they see. I like that a lot. And of course, the term over describe can be, that's a very wide term. Obviously, you don't want to go into a complete, full chapter on just describing it.
You don't need to know the climate and time of day and the way that the shadows are hitting the trees or some shit like that.
You want to set the scene, but we got a game to play. So let's move it along.
Yeah. I think and the other thing that maybe bears mentioning here is that you also don't want to overdo it on your map. If you've got a map on the table, you don't necessarily want to put every table and chair and piece of, and pot and coffee mug and stuff like that. You just do the outlines of what's there.
Yeah.
And then if people need something and it's not
if it's
stupid for it to be there,
you can then add things that are important to this. It's harder to take away things that aren't important that you've already established than it is to be like, oh yeah, you rolled a 20 plus 4, so I'm gonna say that you've just noticed that there was an armoire next to you with a kind of funny looking drawer on it.
Yeah,
that reminds me of the one post a while ago on Twitter. I forget the username, but the guy was running his campaign, and then before the big bad, they did a prequel / flashback thing, and then he describes this huge mountain that was not in the original campaign. So now he has to come up with the method that a mountain was totally vanished without destroying the surrounding ecosystem.
Yep, you fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Just blame the wizards.
Always
That's what
blame
I
the
do.
wizards.
Whenever something's real fucked up like that, I'm just like, some fucking wizard did it.
What about the mountain that was in the first description? Oh, you mean Gromtu, the living mountain? That one?
Yeah, he fucked off. There's too much fighting going on here. I'm out of here.
On vacation. Yeah.
He was on vacation. Went back home. Number 7, create nefarious master villains and scheming factions for your campaign.
I will always say you should have at least 2 factions of possible enemies, unless you're going for like a straight, that's the evil wizard, these are his evil enemies, we have to fight these evil enemies to get to the evil wizard. I think it just creates a better story and more engagement in your players to have like multiple factions with different wants and methods.
That also leaves you open for like red herrings.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you thought this was the big bad, but he's actually working for someone much fucking worse.
You get double crosses involved, and there's a lot of story in there. I'm a big fan of 3 factions.
Mm-hmm.
2, it feels very like you can kind of decide early on which one's good, which one's evil. When there's 3, it gets complicated.
Yeah, it's always triangles. You want to be making triangles in your games, so that it's not just that binary decision.
I think it is important, though, for the DM to kind of flesh out the factions before you introduce them, just because otherwise coming up with 3 factions on the fly and the things that they're doing can just mess it up for you as the DM. It can lead to a lot of confusion. That's something, there's a lot of plotting and planning that's got to go into your faction.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it starts as 2 and a third one kind of like makes its way into it as things go, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or even you start out with 1 faction and then you're like, oh, these are the guys that you work for, and then all of a sudden there's 2 more that are like, no, that guy's a fuck up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, what do I do now?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a plot that's like a mutiny or a revolution or something like that, where your factions, where you start with a single faction, but your plan is that the other factions are going to fairly soon in the game, they're going to split off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up with those because they've gotten to know everybody. Because that lets everybody get to know everybody while it's one faction, so they can get to know everybody. And then when they split up, then that's an actual decision point, We like these guys. We like these other guys. They hate each other, though. So what do we do? As opposed to that kind of like, that bias that you have towards liking the people you meet first, and then second, and then third, and if they're completely separate when you meet them at the time that they're separate.
I just think that this one particularly gives a lot more depth to a campaign. So this isn't something necessarily I would implement for like one shots and things. But if you want,
this is long term stuff.
This is a long term, like you're at like level 5 or 6 before you realize, oh no, this isn't even the biggest, baddest one that we've been chasing after the whole time.
I'll go on record as saying that a BBEG, a master villain is completely unnecessary, and you don't ever need one.
If your factions are well fleshed out, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you've got good goals.
The big bad is the collaboration between all of the factions. If they all started working together, the whole thing would fall to shit.
You don't need a big like overarching master.
It might help to have like one big bad in the faction, because like the snake's got to have a head.
Well, each of the factions should have a leader, certainly. But I think so. So the thing that I like is to not like. I see so many new DMs launch their games with the big final bad guy. They know exactly who that is when the game starts before anybody's even made their characters.
Yeah.
And I'm completely over that. I don't do that anymore. I give a kind of a general outline of what the world is, and then those factions and the bad guys get built out of what the PCs give me. And if you can do that, then you'll get way more engagement than if you're just feeding it to them and saying, here's what I've put down, now slot your characters into that.
Mm-hmm.
You can find some combination of, your rogue player comes to you with a wicked cool idea for a thieves guild. You're like, yeah, okay, that's one of the factions now. as long as you're open to that, I think that's
you could even have it like if any of you have played the Nuka World expansion in Fallout, the 3 factions there are all vying for the same seat of power, and they're all about equal. They're all a bunch of shitty raiders.
It's fantastic because, all of them are terrible in their own way, but all of them also have a point in their own way. And so figuring out which of them you're going to throw in with is, it is a tough decision and makes the game really interesting. So absolutely. A good place to learn.
Throwing in with any of them will affect your standing with other factions too, outside of Nuka World. Just in case, spoilers. Fuck you guys. This game's been out forever, but like,
I was gonna say for like
just in case.
Was that like a decade-old expansion, something like that? That's So
I don't, Jim. Time isn't even real.
I know.
Number 8, ask the players if they are enjoying the campaign. If the fun is waning, use their feedback to find out what needs changing.
Yeah, solid advice.
And this is like humanizing the DM. Because within the games world, DM is literally, the omnipotent. In a game with actual gods, the DM is the actual god.
Yeah.
But it's good to humble and human.
Well, this
yourself.
goes back to what our main point is a lot of the time with RPG horror stories and stuff. It's just about communicating between all of the players.
Don't forget, this is a table full of your friends. And in a fantasy world, it's easy to forget that.
Hopefully. I think that one's pretty straightforward, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 9, have the characters refight the occasional tough battle after they level up to show them how far they've progressed.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Level 2, you find yourself a forest troll, and
you double back to a town that you've been to previously, and all of a sudden that fucking whoozy whatsy that you've defeated already.
I mean, the other thing that's cool to do is to have like, I love that thing where one of them like nearly TPK'd you get to the level where now you can fight like 5 of them. And then you get to the level where they're just minions for someone else.
Yes.
Is very cool. That kind of tiered thing. I dig that. That's a lot of fun.
A very important part is revisiting a fight that you almost got TPK'd at and just winning it.
Not only just winning it, but just like really laying them the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
Build up your players' confidence, Right.
And then later you come back again, it's trivial. And like Jim said, they are there to support the bigger thing that you don't have to worry about.
Exactly, yeah.
Breath of the Wild is good at this too. What are those centaur things called?
Oh, the Lionels?
Yes.
Lionel, yeah.
I didn't play Breath of the Wild all that much, and I remember never being able to beat those things.
I am neck fucking deep in it right now. I'm completely obsessed with it.
Jim just got himself a Switch. So.
I know you said you're not going to do a just play it about it, but
listen, if you're recording and send it over, I don't really. All I do is edit your content. I don't.
A lot of good game design in that game.
I 1000% agree. In fact, there's a couple of things from that game, and I don't want to get too into it today, but like things like the destructible weapons is something that can absolutely be part of your campaign. If NADPOD just talked about this on their Dungeon Court.
Solid, good piece of advice. Yeah.
Number 10, real-world maps of castles, manors, abbeys, etc. provide great inspiration for dungeon design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Like that. Yeah.
I use architectural plans to help me with my writing too. Just like if you're writing about being in a specific type of house, like it's good to know how they're typically laid out so that when you see it, you can write about it too.
And who designs a better castle than actual castles?
Yeah.
Castles probably have real dungeons in them too. So like,
yeah, but they probably don't have as many cool magic traps. You have to add those yourself.
You'd be surprised.
You're right. King Arthur definitely had a bunch of magical traps in his castle.
And that's the thing. And that word inspiration is important there. I don't think you necessarily take it to,
excellent point.
No, but like designing floor plans for buildings is not everybody's favorite thing to do. So having pre-made ones is great.
Now, side note
Especially
here,
if you're designing your own dungeon or your own kind of campaign, having reference material is really great.
I don't know if any of you are as big of board game people as I am, there's a game called Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite games.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like a geomorph game, right? You're building you've got like
you got room tiles
and you got to fit them all together and
you
stuff.
just have to make them fit, and then it's based on the actual King Ludwig that just asks for just weirder and weirder shit in his castles. Play one round of Castles of Mad King Ludwig and get this crazy shit castle that you put together that makes no sense. Hallways on hallways on hallways, with a crypt and like 7 bedrooms.
When I was the manager of my first game store, one of our regular players was a kid who worked in the store, and he was actually studying for his bachelor's degree in architecture at the time. And so that was not necessarily that was pretty intimidating to sit down and you'd be like, and as you describe, and you'd be like describing the room and you're like, as you enter into the room, you can see that the columns are, and he'd say, are they load bearing? Yes, then pillars. They're not columns, they're pillars if they're load bearing.
Oh, get out of that game.
Amazing.
I'd be like, and then one of those load bearing pillars falls on you and you die.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, if it's load bearing and it falls, then you're all dead.
But yeah, that's
well,
that out of
once
game
you're dead,
expertise
does it
thing.
really matter?
So that's the first 10.
Pretty good so far.
Yeah. We got a good chunk of an episode in here.
Yeah.
So are we getting all 50 of these in here? No. So I think we're gonna split these up into 10s. That seems to be a good episode length. So I'm gonna cut things here. Keep track of these tips and keep looking out for more of these episodes. If you like it, shoot us an email or just tag us on anything and let us know if you like this, don't like this. We want to make episodes that you want to hear.
Or shit, if you have your own DM tips, send those in too. I'd love to hear them.
100%.
Don't steal them from this list. We have the list.
Yes. If you have things that are not on this list,
we
would love a user submissions on this one. Also, and I probably said at the top of the episode too, this is an open call for your horror stories. Please send us your horror stories. Send us a well-formatted horror story over to Curmudgeons and Dragons pod@gmail.com. If we like the story, we'll either read it on the show or even invite you to come read it yourself. We got one coming up in a couple weeks from a listener. That's going to be awesome.
Oh, I can't wait. That was really fun to record too.
That's all I got. You guys good?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm always good.
This episode comes out in like 12 hours. I'm going to go end this call immediately and start editing.
Perfect.
Guys, thank you so much,
God,
Josey.
I can't wait to hear all of your hard work when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, right? Josey, Jim, Greg, I'm Jason. We'll see you next time.
Take it
Have
easy.
a good night.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.